We are here with the John Oates, singer, songwriter, musician, author of a memoir, and also, of course, one half of the duo act, Hall and Oates. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, thank you, Nicole. It's very nice to see you. And I actually don't know the young lady at the bottom of the screen, so.
I'm Alex.
Hey.
I'm a Philly musician as well.
Okay, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
All right.
Would you like to introduce your companion here today?
Oh yes, my companion is my very special Porsche 1960 Porsche Emery Special. It's a car that was hand built for me for my birthday that I commissioned. It took almost 3 years to build. And I did it for a very, very special birthday, which actually was my 70th birthday. I decided to treat myself. It just so happened to be Porsche, the company, Porsche's 70th birthday, the same exact year. So I thought, as a really cool vibe, I would build a car exactly the way I wanted from an old car. And that's, wow. There it is right there.
There she is. Does she have a name, or he? Did you name your car?
Yes. Yeah, it's called Expensive. Miss Expensive. Ms. Expensive.
Ms. Yeah.
I love it.
Awesome.
We wanted to first just start off by asking, how are you doing during this really crazy time in history right now?
It's just like all of us. It's very challenging, and but it took me a while to come to grips with it, because I am such a I like to work. I mean, I'm always active. I'm always traveling. I tour all the time, whether it's with Daryl Hall or whether it's with my own Nashville band, the Good Road Band. So I'm always, active or in the studio. And so it was quite an adjustment for me to slow it down to the point where I remember one morning I woke up and I said, is this what retirement is like, when you just wake up and there's nothing? I thought, well, if it is, it sucks and I'm not into it. So that was my first reaction. The other thing was, then I settled into it and I started writing songs like a crazy person. I think I've written more songs in the last 2 months than I've written in years. And a lot of them were inspired by the isolation, sequester thing. But just in general, and I think that, I focused a little bit more on the words, on the lyrics, trying to come up with things that I felt were, important to me at the moment, emotionally and physically. So that's been, if you can take any positive from it, I think that's been a really good thing.
Wow. Awesome. Do you plan to do something with all of these songs now that you have this many?
Well, interestingly enough, right before this COVID thing happened, Daryl and I were all set to do a 38-city tour. And we did a show in Hershey, Pennsylvania as a warm-up. And then we played Madison Square Garden and we sold it out. And we thought, okay, this is amazing. We're off to we're off and running. It's going to be an incredible tour. We had the group Squeeze, and we had a great artist named KT Tunstall opening for us. Mm-hmm. And she's amazing. So we thought, this is just fantastic. We're on our way. And then everything stopped. So it was just kind of weird. So Daryl and I had decided that we were going to try to record something together, because we hadn't recorded in quite a while. So we had also set aside some time to write in between the tour. But of course, that all came to a stop. So the writing in a way was inspired not only by the isolation, but by the possibility of doing something with Daryl. So yeah, I've been writing with a little bit more pop sensibility as opposed to a rootsy bluesy thing, which I was doing prior to this. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Staying busy.
Yeah, I stay busy.
Yeah. You're in Aries, I saw. So my the only other Aries I know is my pop-up, and same thing. He cannot sit still. So
yeah. Yes, yeah, that might be part of it, So
so we've been no, you're fine. So we have both been I've been reading and she's been listening to Change of Seasons. We're both different learners. Okay. Auditory and visual.
It's a great book.
It's wow, yeah.
Thank you.
So good. You're a great writer. Honestly.
Thank you.
And I want to say
Well,
for anybody
yeah.
that's listening, that's a music geek, to definitely take a look at it, because there's a lot of history in there, and it was just, it's awesome.
Well, I was a journalism major at Temple University on North Broad Street there. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. So I never really got a chance to write in a long form. It's always been lyrics and songwriting. And so it was something that I had a collaborator named Chris Epting, who's also from Pennsylvania. He's from Ambler. And he did a lot of research, and he had published a few books. So he really helped me through the process. And it was an interesting experience to do. It took me about 2 years. My biggest challenge in the book was, how do I tell my own personal story when my personal story is so wrapped up in the Hall & Oates experience and the many years that I've worked with Daryl Hall, my whole adult life, basically. So that was a little bit of a challenge. I hope I did okay with that.
You definitely did.
Yes.
And I went to North Penn High School, so I'm from so it was so cool to hear about Hatfield in the 50s and 60s.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it just sounded so different.
I mean, if we're going to get real local here, I grew up in North Wales, so
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. It was anybody that's from Hatfield, it's really North Wales.
Right.
It's actually like really interesting to hear about and that's where your love of cars started, right? There was a raceway.
Yeah, there was a Hatfield Speedway. It was a little, very funky dirt track, and it's obviously no longer there. And that was, there wasn't much to do, back in those days. There was a little tiny amusement park, West Point. Do you know where? I don't know if you know where West Point was. Little tiny place. There was an amusement park, and they had a roller rink and some little dinky rides. So that was the only place kids could hang out, and dance.
Yeah, and muskrat hunting. What was muskrat hunting about? I just want to know how that goes. I didn't.
Alex, I don't think we need to go there. There's certain things that I think we have to be, even on the internet. I think there's certain things we might want to avoid.
I have it starred.
You probably don't realize how country and rural Lansdale and North Wales was back in the 50s. I mean, they were Amish, and it was real small town stuff, and so right behind where I grew up was a big field and a farm, a sheep farm, which is obviously no longer there. It's all houses now. But yeah, there was, I used to play in the woods and the fields, and it was really, it's the suburbs now, but it wasn't the suburbs when I grew up.
Until your book, I had no idea that there were Amish in Lansdale in North Wales, because I grew up like west of Chester County, right near the Lancaster border. So that's all there was. Yeah. But I was like, wait, what? Because the Lansdale I know is that's so built up. And
yeah, we had a few Amish kids at school and stuff like that. So it was an area that was, like I said, it was rural and farmy, but it was changing quickly. And obviously now it's just a suburb of Philly, kind of. Yeah.
One of the questions we wanted to ask you was kind of going off that. If your dad's company hadn't have been moved down to Pennsylvania, do you ever think about where your life trajectory would have gone if you would have stayed in New York, especially as a musician in New York?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've considered that many times. I've always said that it was probably the greatest thing my parents ever did, or gift they gave to me, was to move our family from New York to Philadelphia, because the rest of our entire family stayed in the New York, New Jersey area, right near New York City. So we were the only ones that moved, and it was just because, as you said, because my father's job transferred him. But we, my parents, being young parents, they were only in their early 20s, and they were lonesome for their friends and their family. So even though we moved to Pennsylvania, every weekend we drove to New York City. So as a really young kid, my entire experience was, I almost thought of myself, even though I was living in Pennsylvania and North Wales, I thought of myself as a New Yorker, because my parents thought of themselves as New Yorkers. So when I, years later, when I moved back to New York, it was like, yeah, yeah, okay, I'm back where I started, so to speak, you know.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you a really funny story. I don't know, it's in the book actually, but it's one of my favorite stories. We would always drive in from Pennsylvania to New York City, and as we would come in, we'd come in through the Holland Tunnel, which was the tunnel that was in the lower part of Manhattan, right? So as we would come in through the Holland Tunnel, we would come up, and when you emerged from the Holland Tunnel, you were in Greenwich Village. And I always remember my mom saying, "Hey, Johnny, this is where the kooks live." You know, because the beatniks, you know, the beatniks with the black,
Yeah.
all dressed
Yep.
in black. And, you know, they said, this is where the kooks live. And sure enough, guess where I moved when I moved back to New York? So I always thought that was pretty funny.
Those are hipsters now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I think,
Yes,
yeah.
now they're hipsters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I was very happy for you that you did go back to New York a bunch, because I was like, oh, I hope he doesn't miss out on those meatballs from your grandmother.
Oh, okay. Hey, you know what? That's one of the few things I can still make. It's one of our big
Nice.
family traditions with our son. You know, we make you know, we have an Italian Christmas every year because we never had a traditional type of Christmas. It was always lasagna and manigot and all, you know, sausage and peppers. So you know, every Christmas we make lasagna, you know, as a, you know, kind of a tribute to my grandmother.
That's such a nice tradition. Moving forward past the Philly years, way past the Philly years, we were really interested in your perspective on the 70s and the 80s culture. You just very vividly described how fast paced and lavish it was, and I guess we're and how unlike any other decade it really was up to that point. Um, and this is kind of a two-part question. Why do you think that was? And then also, it seems that the 2020s are fast and lavish and accelerating, and we're so addicted to instant gratification. Can you draw a parallel between those two times?
Well, Miss Nicole, that is a very large question.
I
You
know, I'm
put.
sorry.
Shall we take one
Let's take
segment
one
at
at
a
a
time?
time. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, you know, the 70s were very different from the 80s. Completely different. The 70s were like a reaction to the 60s. You know, they were kind of, the 60s was very kind of whole grain kind of, you know, let's be hippies and be spiritual, you know, and it was a lot of bullshit involved and a lot of drugs and stuff like that. The 70s were like, okay, let's just forget that we were hippies and let's wear some really weird clothes and be like David Bowie and kind of wear makeup and still take a lot of drugs. And, you know, it was a different energy, completely different energy. Then moving into the 80s, and especially in New York City, because I was living in New York City throughout the 70s and the 80s, the New York City in the 80s was like all about more stuff. It was like more money, more power, more, you know, if you saw the Wolf of Wall Street movie, which I'm sure you guys probably did,
Love
it
that movie.
was really like that. It actually was like that. It seems like a lot of those scenes were exaggerated, you know, with the cocaine and all the women and all the crazy stuff, but it kind of was like that, you know, among that kind of the Wall Street, you know, high rollers, the movers and shakers kind of people. So, you know, it was really like that. I guess, you know, I can't really speak for the times now in terms of, I think it's like you said, I agree with you. It's accelerated, but not in the same way. The technology is accelerated. The information, the input, the kind of barrage of stuff that happens is like so intense. It's hard for me to, you know, wrap my head around it in a lot of ways too. But you know, it's just a different time. I mean, hey, I don't know what the kids are doing behind closed doors, if you know what I mean.
We don't know either at this point. It's too much for us too.
Too much. Well, yeah. Good. You'll probably, well, then you'll be better off as time goes on, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I think we totally, Alex and I do feel the same way, where it's this break and this pause in time right now has been so refreshing, because it does seem like with each passing year, it just goes faster and faster, and the technology and the just like what we've seen from growing up, late 80s, 90s to now, it's just, I can't believe how much has changed. So
well, it is a good time right now to reset, in whatever way you want to reset or feel like you can, because it is, you can be a little bit more, introspective. I mean, sure, we're doing, an interview through this new, kind of technology, which has been great for songwriting and to stay connected with people. But at the same time, I mean, my wife and I started doing yoga about 2 months ago, which it was something I always wanted to do, and I never did it. I was like, I never had time. It's like, no, it just seemed like something I couldn't squeeze in. But all of a sudden we did it, and I was like, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? So here again, I guess you try to make the most, create the most positive, situation out of what we've got going.
I see that, I didn't know you were taking yoga, but I see that we both were watching. We love your gardening videos. How you like,
okay.
Like the recent.
That's all bullshit, right?
No.
Okay, hold on a second.
No, I think you have a future.
So I used to be a landscaper, and I was like, wait, is he done?
Okay. I'm going to set the record straight. My wife is a florist. She's a floral designer. Okay, cool. I am her puppet. I am the puppet. She's the puppet master, and I'm this I'm guy. I mean, she's like, okay, take that, put that over here, do this, do that, and I'm like, and everyone thinks I'm this like floral genius, right? Okay, you know what? As P.T. Barnum once said, you can fool some of the people all the time, and all the people some of the time. But you know what? Everyone loves it, so we're going to keep doing it. We're going to do our Sunday Ikebana floral arrangement. And so I just have a cup of coffee and stand around like a geek, and she tells me what to do, and then I do it. So there you go.
I love it. You guys should do something together.
She doesn't want to do it. I keep telling her, I said, you're the damn floral designer. You should be the one that's out there getting all the credit and doing all this stuff. But she doesn't want. She wants me to be it. I think she likes to live vicariously through me.
Yeah.
She figures, she doesn't have to be on camera. She doesn't have to worry about how she looks. She can just kind of do. She told me, you be Charlton Heston, I'll be Cecil B. DeMille. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
I love that.
I mean, if I come out in like a Roman robe, like Ben-Hur or something, don't be surprised. Again, that could happen. You never know.
Yes. Yes, you need to start dressing up.
Yes. What else have you been doing during quarantine to kind of stay sane and just fill up your time? Maybe things that you would never have done before.
No, I haven't. There's nothing I've never done other than the yoga and floral arrangements. But no, I drive my car. I used to race cars, and I love driving, and the country roads in Tennessee and Kentucky are amazing. They're not very well traveled, so they're really well paved, and they're beautiful scenically. They drive, go through the country. So I go out in the countryside on, and I go on my own, and it's great. It's like meditative for me because I don't listen to the radio. I don't use my phone. And I just drive and enjoy the thing, and I clear my head. I usually get a lot of like song ideas when I'm doing it. That's always something positive from it. But that's kind of what we've been doing. We've been walking. There's a great park nearby with trails. I like to trail run. I do things like that. I try to stay fit. So yeah.
I have a go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You go. No, go ahead.
Oh, you go. You go first.
No, you go. No, you go.
It's a really specific question. So you go.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Okay. So, in your book, you talked about you had a friend that you grew up with that had passed from serving, and you had to perform a song at his funeral.
Yeah.
And which is always really, really, really hard to do, and I can't imagine choosing an anti-war song. And I wanted to know, because you kind of stopped there, and I wanted to know how that went, and if anyone noticed, or your song choice, and what the song was.
It was very hard. It was very, very hard. That the boy you were talking about he was my, without a doubt, one of my best friends in high school.
Mm.
We were on the wrestling team together. I actually dated his sister. I mean, we
Oh,
were very
wow.
close. Our parents knew each other, and he went to 1 year in college at East Stroudsburg in Pennsylvania, and he dropped out. I don't know why he dropped out, but he joined the Marines. And he was a gentle kid. He wasn't really a macho dude or anything like that. And so he went off to Vietnam, and unfortunately, he got killed. So when they brought his body back, or whatever remained of it, it was a closed casket. It was very sad. And his parents asked me if I would sing a song. So in the church, they were Catholic. It was a Catholic church. So I didn't know how to deal with it. It was, I mean, I was only 20, 20, maybe 21
Mm-hmm.
when it happened. And I remember I didn't want to sing it, in front of everyone, because I didn't know what was going to happen emotionally. So I went up in the balcony of the church and I sang it from up there so no one could see me. And it was not easy to get through that song, I have to be
Wow.
honest with you. So I chose that song because I didn't know what else to sing. And it seemed like a song that, it's a Civil War song. The Civil War was a really, horrible time in American history. Americans killing Americans, horrible situation. And I was not a fan of the Vietnam War. I didn't believe in it. I thought it was wrong from the beginning. To this day, I never really, was something that I think there was a bad mistake in American history. So
Mm-hmm.
so I just needed to get through it the best way I could.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me, because I feel like sometimes those song choices, or even in the writing process, writing songs where you are speaking to how you feel about such sensitive issues, can be really daunting and uncomfortable. And like this morning, I kept seeing the headlines about George Floyd, who had just passed away from an officer, and the headline was "I Can't Breathe," and I was like freaking out because I wrote a song 6 years ago because of the same headline, "I Can't Breathe," because of Eric Garner, and I was like, "Is it the anniversary? What is this?" And I couldn't believe it happened again. And I remember when I would perform that song, I felt so uncomfortable because I'm white, and also because it was sad, and I never, I remember my friends and a producer telling me that song is so too depressing, like don't do anything with that. And I did it, and today I was like, wow, like I didn't even realize until today, like not doing that song anymore was such a passive choice, and I regret that. But I really appreciated hearing that you did that, and I think it helped me today realize, what had happened with that song for me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's really that's the beauty and the power of songwriting. When a song like that you wrote years ago, all of a sudden you realize can still resonate in today, or with a circumstance that had nothing to do with your inspiration to write it. Same thing happened with a song that I wrote with Nathan Chapman about 6 years ago. We wrote a song about struggle, and it was called "Pushing a Rock Uphill," and we wrote it together. And just recently, I was asked to play it on one of these internet acoustic performances.
Wow.
And I told him I was going to play it. And we both talked about how what's going on today has nothing to do with what we were thinking about when we wrote it years ago, but yet it still seems as valid and as important now. And so as songwriters, because we're all songwriters, and which is one of the greatest things, I mean, it's one of the best jobs you can have, because you can create magic, you can create something from nothing, and you can articulate emotions for people that perhaps they can't do, things they may want to, they feel, or they would want to express, but they don't know how to do it. And as a songwriter, if you can do that, that's a gift, and it's a gift to yourself, so that you can elicit that emotion, but it's also a gift to the people that hear it. So don't stop singing that song. You should actually sing it.
Mm. Amen. And I want to ask you about Madonna. You got in a fight with Madonna. That
Okay,
fight
okay,
is like
wait a minute.
celebrity
Okay,
death
hold on a
rap
second.
match.
Hold on a second. We go from crying in the church
No.
over my
Well,
friend who passed away to
I'm sorry.
Madonna. Okay.
No, I'm sorry, but we had to transition, and we also only have 40 minutes, but so I apologize. No, yeah, I think that it's related in my mind because, with that, like staying true to who you are as an artist and a songwriter, and there's a lot of noise and a lot of like, music videos, and like when you were telling a story on an interview about, you talking to Madonna about your feelings about that. Like again,
No, let's hold on.
Yeah,
Hold
can
on,
you
Alex.
tell the story? Yeah.
Let's get something straight. I wasn't talking to Madonna about anything. She was yelling at me.
Okay. No. Okay. Yeah. Can you help retell the story?
She we were on this thing called a new music panel. It was during new wave, when new wave music kind of started and when MTV kind of started. And so they had this music seminar in New York City, and we were on a panel together. I happened to be sitting next to her. And we were discussing the power of music videos because it was such a new thing. It was revolutionary. Everyone was so excited about MTV. And I made a comment that said, hey, you know what? Sure, it's great. It's great promotion. I never wanted to be an actor. All I care about is making music. And if I have to jump around in front of a camera, well, that's okay. And she lit into me like, you stupid, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And music's the future. Music videos are the future. And honestly, it was kind of one of those kind of things. And from her point of view, her first record happened at the exact same time as MTV. My first record happened 10 years before that. So I saw MTV as just an extra thing. She saw it as part and parcel of what she did. And she was totally right because music videos made her career initially. And she set the standard for that kind of stuff. So she was right from her point of view, and I was right from my point of view, but she's a kind of in your face kind of gal. So there you go.
It's an epic it's just an epic so, like, because even today I feel like there's so much social media and so much noise, and that's the way it's going, and the person who just wants to sit in my room and be quiet and write, like, sometimes I have trouble with that. So that conversation was like, wow, that's so crazy.
Okay, well, I'll let Madonna know when I see her.
Thanks for speaking up. Thanks for making that comment and getting yelled at.
Oh, and by the way, Nicole, I really like your white jazz master. It's not a jazz master.
Oh, thank you. Actually,
like a jazz master.
It is a jazz master, but it's just a Fender Squire, so it's nothing special. But thank you.
Right. I've got one as well. I like that guitar.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a great guitar.
And I like your tunings.
Thank you. I love the open D tunings. I'm a big open D fan.
Yeah,
yes.
I like it too. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Really cool. And you know what? Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure. Yes.
Since, believe it or not, you're now getting interviewed. So just so you know. When you did that one song, did you have an octave divider on the guitar, or were you playing to a bass part?
No, neither.
But there was so much low end. It was cool. It was like a real rich
it's
bottom end.
literally the open D tuning, and all. I mean,
okay.
And all I put on
really
it is
cool.
reverb and chorus. That's it.
Yeah, it sounded really good. It sounded really good.
Yeah, it's a fun. Had you ever experiment with alternate tunings?
I do. I have a lot of alternate tunings. I do a lot in the open E and open. I even tuned down to C. Wow,
awesome.
This meeting has been upgraded by the host and now includes unlimited minutes. Wow, did we win something?
Yeah, I didn't do that.
Maybe. Wow, who did it?
I didn't do it.
I think it was your car.
You know what it is? We are so entertaining and interesting that the weird universe of
just extended it for us. Thank you, universe.
Said, you guys are on a roll. Keep going. Okay, all right.
That has never happened in any of our interviews. That's never happened.
It's good to know. Good to know.
It's the John Oates magic. So you were saying C. Yes. So I've only done that a few times. Oh, am I gone now?
You got deleted. I'm sorry.
No. Wait, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but you've become like this weird. you become this weird black and
Oh, you
white
know why? There we
circle
go.
thing.
Someone was calling me. That's
She's
annoying.
in the interweb.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh, all
anyway.
right.
You got lost.
Yeah, you can have 40 extra minutes, but we're taking your soul. So the C tuning is always so daunting to me because I am so afraid of breaking a string.
Well, what you have to do, you're actually tuning, you don't worry about that because you're tuning down. You're tuning below, you're tuning down to it.
Right.
So it's like an open E tuning, but but starting in C. So what you have to do is you have to put heavier gauge strings on your guitar because the strings will be so loose and floppy if you use normal light gauge strings.
Right.
When you tune down to C, it'll feel like you have rubber bands on the guitar. So you have to go up to a medium or heavy gauge string, but then you have to be careful because certain guitars, especially acoustics, they don't want to have a really heavy gauge string.
Right.
It's the same tuning that Joni Mitchell used when later on in her career when she didn't want to sing so high. So she started in D. She started in a lot of E and D tunings, and then she, as the years went on, she still wanted to do the same songs with the same fingering. So she tuned down to C.
Yeah. I remember trying to learn one of her songs and it was in that tuning, which was one of the few times I tried it. And I think I got there, but I was very anxiety ridden. I remember that. I remember being scared.
Yeah.
And then Alex you pretty much standard, but you play some funky chords. Lots of.
Yeah, I was self-taught, so I did my own tunings
like
for
soul, folk, blues, and
Oh, really?
yeah.
Well, I'll have to check you out.
Well, I was like, I love Make Me Down a Palette. That's like the, and so I saw you did that and all of those old blues songs. But yeah, they're the best.
Oh,
Alex has a song called Lady Landscaper, which would be perfect for your wife.
Lady Landscaper?
It makes me think of your wife.
Okay, all right.
So we wanted to ask you, reading the book, just knowing about your life story, and of course, growing up as Philadelphians, like Hall & Oates is kind of just in our DNA when we're born. So it seems like you have lived multiple lifetimes in one, and there's been ups and downs and everything in between. Have you always had this Zen-like quality that you just have now, or not? Did it shape you?
I don't know whether I have it or not. I try to take the high road. I've always tried to do the right thing. I had good parents. I was fortunate to grow up in a good solid household, and middle class. We didn't have a lot, but we didn't want anything either. So I've had a very, I've always been like I'm kind of down to earth, I guess you call it. And I just, I like being that way. I like people, I like treating people fairly. And it's just one of those things when bad things have happened over the years, like, if you read the book, you probably know that there was, some really bad business situations that I had to work through. And at the time, I was in my 30s when that happened, late 30s, and the rug was pulled out from under me. And whenever that happens in your life, especially as you get older, it's hard to recover from it, because when you're young, you can kind of bounce back. You got plenty of time and you got time on your side. But when you're older, so when it happened to me, it was very traumatic. And I thought I had a lot of negativity, and I wasn't very Zen-like. I was like, I wanted revenge, and I wanted to get back at the people who did me wrong, so to speak. But years later, after being able to see it from a different lens, from the lens of of time, I realized if those things hadn't happened to me, I might have just carried on in the same way I was carrying on, at the time, which wasn't healthy or good necessarily. And it allowed me to, I moved to Colorado. I got divorced. I moved to Colorado. I met my wife, who, at the time we built a house, had a kid. All those things wouldn't have happened had that rug not been pulled out from under me. So even though it was maybe, I at the time thought it was the lowest time in my life, turned out to probably be the best time in my life, because it actually set me on a course for the future that I never would have done had that not happened. So sometimes you need a kick in the ass in order to figure out what you really need to do,
It sounds like it potentially saved your life.
It did, because I mean, I would have just, I was living, I was living a life of an irresponsible 80s rock star, which a lot of people probably would love to do. And I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of fun involved, and, running around the world and being, not caring about business, not caring about money, not caring about anything. But then it caught up to me, and had I not done that, who knows, I might have just kept doing that and ended up being, whatever, something not very good or wholesome or healthy.
Yeah. Wow. Is there anything that you could potentially share with aspiring singer-songwriters? Anything that you've learned throughout your tenure, especially in this modern music industry?
The modern music industry is a really challenging place to be as a young artist, songwriter, musician. I do not envy you guys, your generation, for having, what you're facing. And on one hand, the positive side is that everyone has a voice now through the internet and through digital distribution. Anyone who makes music can be heard. But the negative side is that anyone who makes music can be heard. So, you have this incredible glut of stuff that's out there that you have to cut through to get attraction, to gather a following, or to find people who, and I think if you accept that the days of the albums like Thriller and Frampton Comes Alive that sold 80 million albums and all that stuff, those days are over, and they never will come back again. But then again, streaming, there are people out there who are streaming millions and millions of streams. So it's really it's transmuted into this other thing. And I think what you guys have to do to get your word out and to get your music out is to accept what it is and work within that system, which you're all doing. But then when it all comes down to basics, it's always the same. Write the best song you can, play, learn your instrument, don't rely on technology to do it for you. Be proud of having a musical tradition. Learn how to sing, learn how to write, learn how to play. Listen to the people you like, listen to your heroes, and I always tell young musicians, try to learn songs from the people you love. Try to learn them exactly the way they did it, because in doing so, you can unlock something of how they think, how their artistic brain translates to their instrument and their voice, and how they do what they do. And then, even though you may be copying them at first, hopefully, if you have creativity, you can take that knowledge of how they do what they do and make it your own. And then you can do something that's original and unique to yourself. So I think that's, it's a time-honored tradition. Musicians have always studied from the masters. Whether it's any kind of art form, it's always the same. You study from the masters, you learn, you try to, if you're a painter, you try to copy, a painter that you love. You try to understand their technique, what colors they use, the techniques they use in their brush strokes, whatever it might be. And so it's the same in any artistic endeavor. Learn from the people you love and try to expand on it to make something of your own. That's the best I can do.
Well, we love you.
Yeah.
And we cover your songs all the time. And I just thank you so much for sharing your music and your soul with us, with everyone.
Well, thanks. Really... It was a pleasure to come on. And I'll have you know that if it wasn't for my wife, we wouldn't be doing this. So you can thank her. She told me, she goes, "Oh, you've got to, Nicole Zell, she's cool. You got to talk to her." So she did it. I'm telling you, you have no idea. I'm actually not talking right now. I'm just moving my mouth. And she's behind me. And what's coming out is really...
Well, we love your wife too. Oh, that's
Good.
so,
We love her.
tell her thank you. That really means a lot. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
I
Yeah.
just want to let you know that.
Oh,
All right.
John, yeah, again for sharing your energy, sharing your time, and for your birthday card for coming on. Thank you for both coming on together.
Ta-da. Oh,
Yeah,
ta-da.
yeah.
Wait a minute.
Wait, there you go.
There
Yes.
you go. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime. And yeah, just
Well,
thank,
keep writing, keep making music. I'll be following you guys. I'll check you out.
thank you so much,
Thank
John.
you.
All right.
Stay
Bye.
well. Bye.
See ya. Bye.